Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on the Healthy Perspective podcast. Today, we have the honor to have Chris Johnson. He is an e-commerce strategist and partner at Full 50. He has over a decade in marketing experience working with fitness and lifestyle brands like Hyperice, Wilson, and the NFL, and has managed over $50 million in advertising spend. Chris is passionate about using commerce to improve the lives of entrepreneurs around the world through one-on-one coaching and access to a network of agencies. He and his wife are based in Northern California and are expecting their first daughter in August. Mr. Johnson, this is a long time coming. Thanks for joining.
Yes, sir. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of probably inside jokes that we'll have to explain on this podcast. Chris and I have been friends, over 10 years now, huh?
Over a decade.
Yeah. So I basically am responsible for the launch of your marketing experience. But we've always talked about some of the conversations, that we have, at the beach, or we're roommates for a couple of years. Like, we should have a radio show, like Chris and Chris on the radio or something. And so it's cool to see that come to fruition. Here we are.
Yeah, Chris, you always have this way of getting me to do things I, probably wouldn't have done in the first place, like try to climb Mount Shasta in tennis shoes. But yeah, man, it's been a journey. Super excited to be here.
I didn't recommend the tennis shoes, just for everyone listening, but
I'm pretty sure you might have. You might have let me, which is, just by association, you're guilty. So
yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like once you're in the kind of the podcasting world, but really like the business world, like you are the coaching world, it's funny how almost everything starts to become like symbolism and meaningful too. Like thinking about that big rock, you were at the bottom, everything is beautiful spring coming right out of the mountain, perfect 70-degree weather, and then you start climbing up this moon of a mountain, straight scree all the way up, no trail, and we get about 3/4 of the way up, and the wind, it picks up to probably 60 miles an hour, something like that.
At least 60. Yeah.
We could lean into it and it would push us back, and we huddled in under a shelter. Our camelback water were freezing, and we knew it was probably time to turn around when you see the swirling like Mordor clouds on the top of the on the top of the mountain.
I knew my girlfriend at the time, now wife, would have killed me if I died on that mountain. So I was like, it's time to turn around. But I think I would have never been that high unless like I had someone like you. I think a friend who motivated me to try something that I was not going to do on my own. It was definitely some convincing, some coaching, and it's huge. And again, I love using that as like metaphors and stories, which sometimes you just got to do exciting things just to have stories to tell to people about how to do life and business and work. So yeah, man, it was a blast. But yeah, may have to train again. I'm a bit older now if you're going to do this mountain.
In the future, going to take some dedication for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. We have 2 questions that we always like to ask. We have your selfless purpose and your selfish why. Being in e-commerce, this is a super interesting role. I think e-commerce can get a bad rap. People just drop shipping Walmart products on Amazon, or just really buying a URL, squeezing it for all it's worth, and then doing another one, and it kind of have this. It can have this bad rap of just bringing no value into the world. Just overselling somebody else's product. You're a broker taking part of it for yourself. And so it's cool to talk with you and talk about using e-commerce and the internet to better entrepreneurs' lives and being for good and making impact around the world. Tell me, what is your selfless purpose and how are you using e-commerce to change the world?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think so many times e-commerce can kind of feel like this slimy thing, but this last year has reflected how important it is just to have access to things that we need. So in COVID, in the pandemic, when we have shut down, that people need it, just basic things to do life. And that's what I love about e-commerce is that it's access. It's access to the things that you need. And I believe you should be, a judge what you actually need. So that's kind of a whole nother conversation. But
Right.
for me, one of my beliefs, one of my values is that like access to global economies is a human right, that you should be able to access the things that globally we take for granted, like the internet, because that is what is the difference between poverty and honestly thriving, is access. And so e-commerce is one of the best ways to do that. It's simply saying there are resources in one area that I can make available to someone else in another space. And that gives me freedom to move from low value markets into big valuable markets. And that can change an entire community, a person's life, their livelihood, just simply be able to sell things like pineapples on the internet. And so that's part of my not selfish, but kind of the reason behind why I do what I do in an area that can be very selfish and self-focused. Is saying, how do I help give people access to the things that they need through e-commerce?
Yeah, that's good. You know, we were both, actually, you introduced me to coffee. I'm pretty sure I had my very first cappuccino with you at Sight Glass Coffee in San Francisco. I'd never had, because I promised myself when I was in chiropractic school in undergrad, I wouldn't drink coffee, so I wouldn't get addicted to it, and I wouldn't have to I wouldn't bomb my finals because I didn't have my coffee in the morning, you know? But now, both being, coffee aficionados or snobs, however you want to, look at it, you look at some of these farmers that are growing beautiful coffee beans that otherwise nobody would be able to enjoy because they have no access. They can't sell it online. They can't find transportation. They can't and think about, I don't remember what the stats are, but when a country adds coffee to their export list, I mean, their country becomes so much more valuable. It booms their economy because of how big the coffee industry is. And so now you advance that. Like, now you're not just selling products. What if a kid can get internet and get education? Like, then you don't need to walk. I don't remember what show it was, but there's some show on Discovery Channel where these kids are walking miles across a dangerous river. They're literally pulling themselves across a cable car, across a river to get to school, but they're all failing their classes because by the time they get home, they have to eat and go to bed and help on the farm. You know what I mean? What if they can just do school online? Like, what, it could change the education level, which means that they don't have to settle for jobs that require no education, and collectively it makes the world a better place.
I'll tell you an example of that, briefly, is like one of the clients we'd worked with they're in Thailand. Thailand, turmeric is a huge product for us in the United States. Turmeric lattes are getting pretty big, and Thai turmeric has 10 times the curcumin of Indian turmeric. So this kind of anti-inflammatory property that just is untapped. And so the interesting thing is that these farmers are growing pineapple, and the pineapple is rotting because people just aren't buying it. It's just not very valuable. And so, but if they could grow turmeric in the same field, same tools, it's a crop that's 10 times more valuable, that's shelf stable, and you could ship globally. And it's just an example of how even just thinking about what market can I tap into can fundamentally take someone who now has a dead end, can't sell pineapple, to having a new crop, a new opportunity. We are a global community. Like, to be honest, this last couple of years have shown us that we're globally connected. And so, what that does, though, it means that farmer doesn't have to send their kid into the city. And actually, human trafficking can be reduced or ended by simply helping farmers have better access to better crops that people want globally, which is a massive impact from simply getting someone a URL in a store to sell their product.
Right. It's good. I always like to tinker with people's answers, not change their words, but kind of like, we talked about the podcast about drawing the secret sauce out, and I think your selfless purpose is kind of the art of taking, instead of normal e-commerce, is an e-commerce, somebody that runs e-commerce stores sees the pie that's only this big, and the only thing that can get better is their slice within the pie. And so they're kicking and screaming and fighting and destroying everything else so that way they can get more of the pie. When instead you're switching that. It's like, hey, the only thing I'm trying to get bigger is the pie itself. Because I know the bigger that pie gets, even if my percentage stays at 1%, 1% of a million is way more than 1% of 1,000. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're still making a good living, and there's still way more for everybody to share. And so I love that. I love that perspective, because I think it's super helpful for people that maybe the only way they make money is through e-commerce, doing it the slimy way. And like, I just don't know what else my family depends on this, or whatever. And it's like, well, find out a way to make the pie bigger instead of you trying to find a way get
Mhm.
more of the people in it, so that's
Yep,
good, man. I love
absolutely.
that.
It's yeah, it's not zero sum. I think so many people think it is, that it's for someone to be successful means that you're not, but e-commerce is such a baby industry, 25, 30 years old. It's only 10%, if that, of our GDP in the United States. It's
Wow.
a huge opportunity and growth. And so it's not a zero sum game. It's actually, there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
There's more than we can actually handle. But yeah, it's why I do what I do, because it is tough, right? It is tough to convince people to buy your product. But when you unlock that, there's just so much value you provide for people's jobs, their livelihoods, and ultimately, you're helping to really reshape communities simply through access to that kind of market. So it's really motivating, and it's fun to watch. I mean, it's fun to watch businesses double. That's what I get to do. My job is to help people think about their business differently. But that's not the main reason, just doubling a business. It's because, what does that provide for someone? They now get to be free of their day job. That's their full-time career, and it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And double, he's talking about a business that was making $1 is now making $2. I mean, it's absolutely incredible what he's able to do.
Think
Why don't
5 million to 20.
Yeah, why don't you brag a little bit? I know I was with you when you're at Biola, and Biola does a Giving Tuesday every year, right? And you got in charge of, the whole, project. And talk a little bit about what they were doing, what their trend was before and after you started.
Yeah, so Giving Tuesday it's a day, National Giving. So you have like Black Friday, you have Cyber Monday, and then there was this Giving Tuesday, this idea of kind of giving back. And they had done an online challenge, but actually they had never done a Giving Tuesday campaign itself. So this was the first one.
Okay.
So they said, hey, we had raised $10,000 online before. So they said, we'll give you $10,000, but we need you to make $100,000 out of it. So 10x what they had made the year before. And so I took the challenge. And long story short, we redesigned it, created a campaign, ultimately did 124,000, so it went over.
Ew.
The next year we doubled that. Then the third year we doubled that. So we were able to grow that. And ultimately that redesigned the entirety of their online giving. So the online giving, what they call the Biola Fund, was completely transformed. Now it's much larger than before, and it's a critical piece of their infrastructure. And so simply starting with an idea of how does online fundraising work kind of transformed the university. That inspired me. Actually, it was my start into marketing, was this idea of how do I take that from the nonprofit education space into the for-profit. So I've worked with brands that are in the D2C kind of direct to consumer brands, and help them think about the same way. How do we take this product, which could be a Theragun or Hyper Ice, a product that no one knew before, that was like, what is this thing? Is it a jigsaw with a tennis ball?
Pretty much.
And help make them. It was, simply put, they didn't like us saying that, but helping them to idea. And the unlock, I'll take Theragun, for example. The unlock for them was this reaction, this response of the product to how people felt with it. It felt great. And that helped them to 4x their ad account, grow the brand, not only just the US, but Australia and the UK and Canada. It's the power of the idea of how something can impact someone. Runs true with brands that are nonprofit education, but also for-profit businesses that are scaling. So
that's awesome, man. And I being a part of that, being roommates, at that time, like I remember those days of like, dude, we just did this much, and at that time, like I was driving my 1996 Nissan Maxima that I got from my grandma. Were you still driving the Pontiac at the time, or had you upgraded?
I had upgraded to the Saturn, and it had air conditioning. It had air conditioning. The last car had no air conditioning, but I had to hit the dashboard to get the radio to work.
I remember that.
Which then eventually did fry the air conditioning. So I went from a car that had no air conditioning to a car that lost its air conditioning. And I was trying to convince my girlfriend at the time that this will work out. But I was putting everything I had into the idea, right? How do I help this? It's a big shot. It was a moonshot. They had never done it before. They all thought it was going to fail, and we were looking at it coming in. It was showing up, and we had surpassed the year before. We got to $50,000. We went to 75, 100K, 120, and we would have kept going, but we ran out of time. It was a one-day campaign, so at midnight, turned it off. When it could have been probably more.
So cool, man. I love that, and I love this part of the conversation too, as we kind of like switch over. It's like, okay, this is the
Mhm.
amazing thing that we're doing to change the world. Like, what's in it
Yep.
for you? Understanding that this isn't about you. Like, this isn't the
Mhm.
underlying reason why you do what you do, but what's the thing that keeps you going? Like, what makes you tick? Like, what's the reward at the
Yeah.
end of the day that you can, look at, I don't know, a picture of, I don't know, something about me, but that sounds really goofy. You can look
Yeah,
at
and
your,
something
you can,
valuable, you mean? Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, you can look down at your Android phone or your.
No, never. I will never touch it. The inside joke is that Chris Bowman is actually going to switch over to iPhone from Android. He's going to
I
join
still
the
have an
club.
Android though. I'm still rocking it.
You know what? Maybe if we get enough people to watch this, you can get an
How
iPhone.
how
Just,
many, Mr. Challenge Man?
I think 1,000. If you get 1,000 people to
1,000
listen to
downloads.
this, then
Okay.
we're gonna see it. I think an iPhone can be the reward.
All right.
Yeah. For me, some of what we kind of the selfish goals here is, because I work in an industry that is growing and is pretty lucrative. For me, it was this ability for us to kind of navigate both in generosity, so just being able to take people to great dinners, but also to buy a home. One of the big goals was I want to buy a home.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Right.
I'm 31, and I want to. Most of my friends have not bought homes,
Yeah.
and I said I want to be able to buy a home, and provide for my young growing family without having a concern about it. Like this
Right.
wouldn't be a stressful thing.
You
In the
bought a
middle of
penthouse in San Francisco.
no, no. I did buy a home in Vacaville, California. But I do love it. It's a beautiful place, brand new, and it was kind of a symbol of going from. I was working when we met. I was working at Burger Parlor, a burger restaurant in Fullerton,
Which I never ate at because of you, by the way. Because I always wanted to try it. Everybody said it was good, but
it was great. It's just the thing. Like it's not. I don't like to necessarily have people show up at the restaurant. Let me just be honest. That was not my goal to be at a restaurant. I had bigger ambitions, bigger dreams, and you come and eat when I was working there was kind of embarrassing. But I had to go through that, And so now, we don't go to Burger Parlor, but we do go to some of the nicer restaurants. That's kind of like a reward, and or again, running a brand or business, we can expense it. So that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think it's similar for me. When I grew up, we went to dinner, but we got just an entree and we shared most of the time. We weren't getting appetizers, certainly weren't getting drinks, certainly wasn't staying for dessert. We had ice cream at home that we bought, we could get, and we lived a good life, and I don't have any regrets, and there's no shame on my parents or anything like that. But you're right, it is kind of cool going like, I want the appetizer. It sounds really good, and I don't care if I eat all of it. Like I'll have some dessert. I'll have like it's nice to be like, man, the money is not the thing that's holding me back. It's the experience that what I'm going after. So I agree.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. My wife makes fun of me. She says that I like nice things, and she does like nice things too. So she has to admit it. But I do. I like investing now. I think those shift in my mind as I've grown over the last decade is instead of just seeing what's the absolute lowest possible cost into what's the best potential investment. And
so good.
Obviously that's iOS devices, Mac and Apple products, not Android. But like I'll also say recently we just got a home gym. And so we invested in a Rogue setup, and it's Rogue is one of the best brands in kind of home fitness gym quality products. It's not cheap, but it's made to last. It's a quality asset, and it's something that's going to be investing in the health of my family. I want the best for my family. I want them to be able to use that, and it's worth it. Now, there's other things we don't buy. We're not going to buy the most expensive gaseline. I'm not quite that game yet. I still buy the commodity gas.
Your car doesn't go fast enough yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm pushing the family car, but yeah.
Wait, I have to pause here. So okay. I drive a BMW M3, which isn't like, it's a fast car and it's stick shift, which means that when I drive it fast, it's violent. And CJ, did you have coffee in your hand or?
Okay, so we went to go get hot coffee as context, and I was carrying coffee, and he knew that it was full to the brim when he did what he's about to talk about.
And I just floored it on the straightaway on the way to my house, and he's like trying to.
He's shifting, and the coffee is burning my leg. And I'm just like, what are you doing?
That was so fun.
No, I remember when Chris got the car, and I remember it being a moment where we were eating just sandwiches from the store down the street, kind of next to the 7-Eleven, to be able to see a moment where you're able to get something like the car that you have now. It's a symbol of kind of, again, the way that you've deferred those things. You've waited to moments to invest. And so, yeah, man, I can always say I learned a lot from you in that too. Just saying, okay, I'm going to invest in things that I care about. I may have to defer in that process, wait for it. But yeah, now at the stage of investing, growing, and really being in a space kind of I'm in now, we'll see. Maybe I'll invest in another vehicle that is a little faster than yours. But
a Tesla is not in this. You have to be a gas combustible vehicle.
Who said that? I don't think anyone said that. So we'll see what you say. Hey, all I say, quarter mile track. We just see what happens.
Yeah, and you're gonna be whispering by, and I'll be. Sorry for everyone listening in iPhone or earpods for that. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining me. You mentioned coaching. You mentioned your own brand. Are you open for coaching right now? Are you taking on clients? How do you want people to get connected with you? If not.
Yeah, so right now we are taking on clients. We are expecting our first little girl coming pretty soon. So there'll be a window where we don't. But after that, as we get into the end of the year, we'll open up clients. And we're taking on clients who do have an e-commerce focus, but are purposeful. But I also work with some services of the brand. So you can find me at full50.co. I'm sure you have a link, but full50.co. You can spell out a little quick link, and we love talking conversations. My wife and I love to chat with brands, even if it is more of just an introductory call about how to look at the landscape. That is stuff I love doing all day. My wife says I have the gift of Zoom calls, so I'm quite happy to talk to listeners, people, especially if they know you, Chris. I'll do you a favor and take them on. So
give them a discount on your $1 million consultation.
I don't discount, but we invest for sure.
Perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. CJ, thank you once again for joining me. It was a blast. I know it's valuable, and I know people are going to laugh, and I know it's going to be definitely probably one of many conversations that we'll have for people down the road. So have a great rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram at Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.